Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Hope everyone out there is doing well. Today we're going to be taking a look at the PC port for WWE 2K22, which in a lot of ways is really just a coverage of the performance of the game overall, as it seemingly looks and runs the same on consoles. It's really, the game is not that hard to push. But before we get into anything, just quickly wanted to say RIP to the legend Scott Hall, who sadly passed away I believe yesterday. I saw the news last night, and most of the news stories were from just a few hours before. But really sad to see that guy pass away, especially after all the issues, in his life after wrestling that he sort of struggled with. And he had kind of gotten through, seemed like he had, kind of overcome a lot of those issues with addiction, substance abuse, and all that. Through a lot of the help from Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. Him and like Jake the Snake Roberts had gotten a lot better, it seemed like, in recent years. But sadly passed away after surgery complications and stuff from a hip replacement that he had, I think, earlier this month. So pretty sad to see that guy pass away, but RIP to Scott Hall, the bad guy. Razor Ramon. Ayo, that guy. Fucking awesome wrestler. Sad to see that he went. But we're going to jump into the options menu, and then we're going to talk about the port of this game on the PC, and it's a bit of a doozy. A lot of issues with this game, but still, good game overall. As a wrestling fan, I am enjoying it. But first, today's video is brought to you by Primetekmart.com, where you can save money on software like Windows 10 Pro licenses for under $25. They've also got Windows 10 Home for under $20, and now Windows 11 Pro you can grab over on Primetekmart.com. They've also got Office 2019 and the new Office 2021. And if you want to save an additional 20% at checkout on Windows 10 or any other software, go ahead and click Buy It Now, and during the checkout process, go ahead and put JP20 in and apply that coupon, and that'll give you 20% off of any software that you happen to pick up over there. So for Windows 10 Pro, you can see it dropped our price down from $24.46 to under $20. So be sure to hit up the links down in the description below, and don't forget to use my coupon code JP20 at checkout for an additional 20% off. So first up, as I like to do with these videos, I do want to jump into the graphics options menu, and I just want to get this out of the way. If you're into this game at all, you probably already know about some of the fallbacks of this game, but it's the pitfalls of this game, I should say. But at the end of the day, they've actually done a really good job with it, especially compared to 2K20, which was a complete disaster. They took a year off, and I think they did a lot of good stuff with this franchise in terms of the visuals, the moves. This actually feels like a step in the right direction, but also a step back in a lot of ways, as the frame rate is capped to 60 FPS, even on PC, which is not the end of the world, but the cutscenes are also limited to 30 frames per second, which again, wouldn't be the end of the world in terms of just intros, wrestlers coming to the ring and stuff like that. But it's also a part of the whole dynamic camera system. Like when you go into certain maneuvers like finishers and other stuff in the game, it'll cut to a different camera angle to make it appear more cinematic. And it does that in more ways than one, as the frame rate cuts down to 30 frames per second during those cinematic cutscenes, or even moves, like I said, mid-match. Like it'll go into a 30 FPS camera, which can be quite nauseating, to be honest. And seems completely unnecessary, as the game is not that difficult to run. I was easily running this game at 4K maxed out on my 3080 Ti and getting 60 frames per second and barely even tickling the balls of my GPU. So it doesn't really seem necessary, and it's more so just a poor design, honestly, by the developers. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this is still a great wrestling game, and you really don't have that many options out there. So it's like, if you want to play a wrestling game, this is pretty much what you're going to be stuck with. And you can disable the cinematic cameras through an INI tweak, but then that disables that cinematic camera completely. And that also would not be the end of the world, but it messes up the cinematic camera for other presentation parts of the game, in things like My Rise, the sort of story mode of the game where you create your own wrestler and sort of bring them up through the ranks. Messes up some of the camera stuff in there. So it's not a perfect fix, but there are fixes out there. But at the end of the day, if you want to play a good wrestling game, this is pretty much where to go for now. So let's go ahead and jump into the options menu. For some weird reason, the graphics options menu is under extras. So that's where you have to go for the graphics setting. There is also a built-in benchmark which I will show you guys in a bit. And then in the graphics settings, and the benchmark, I got to talk about that too. That's a funny one. So in here, this is where it starts off under screen resolution, and sadly, for some weird reason, like you cannot go up to texture quality. Like you cannot change the texture quality at all. I think it basically detects your system hardware and then sets it from there, but you can't change it. Weird one. Windowed mode, you can turn on or off. Shadows are, again, on or off. Shadow quality, you can do ultra, high, medium, low. But for all this, I was running on ultra, the highest settings available in the game. You can also adjust shader quality. Anti-aliasing is just an on or off option. And from my best understanding, as I read on PCGamingWiki.com, it is FXAA. So that is the anti-aliasing solution, and it's the only option for the game. You can also set audience density from 100 all the way down to 0. But I just left it on. This game is not that difficult to drive. And I also did disable depth of field and motion blur. So before we get into some more gameplay, I will quickly mention the benchmark, which I did run in the game, and I averaged like over 200 frames per second, which is completely meaningless. Because as I mentioned, the game is capped to 60 frames per second. And even in the benchmark, you're capped to 60 frames per second. But there's this frivolous FPS counter in the corner that shows that you're getting like 250 frames. So I'm just like, wow, that would be great if I could actually get that and see that, or, you know, lock it to my monitor's refresh rate, which is 120 hertz for me. But there's plenty of people out there with 240 hertz monitors, 144 hertz, even 360 hertz monitors, that this game would probably be fairly easy to drive at, depending on resolution and the GPU that you're using. But why do they cap it to 60? Which, again, not the end of the world that it's capped to 60, but the whole 30 frame per second thing, and even in like the in-match cameras, when it's swapping from one camera to the other, it immediately shuts down to 30 frames per second. It is infuriating to see this. It's so annoying. But at the end of the day, as I was saying earlier, it's like, if you're a wrestling fan now, or maybe you were years past, I don't really watch wrestling too much anymore. I catch WrestleMania every year, and I do enjoy watching wrestling documentaries that they do, like the WWE Icon series, and last year the biography, A&E biography. They did like a whole series of wrestling documentaries. There's also on Vice TV, they have Dark Side of the Ring. It's also a good documentary series on wrestling. So I still enjoy the world of wrestling. I just don't enjoy the current content of WWE wrestlers and the storylines, and I have no idea what's going on there. And I just don't really enjoy the roster of wrestlers and the way it's become like G-rated. I much prefer the 80s with like Hogan, Macho Man, Randy Savage, Ric Flair, and then the 90s, the Attitude Era with Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, D-Generation X, The Rock, all that kind of stuff. The feuds with like Vince McMahon and, you know, the Hart Foundation, NWO, Raw versus Nitro. Loved all that stuff back in the 80s and 90s. Don't really watch it too more, but this game has a pretty solid roster of wrestlers. It seems like there's quite a lot, and then also with the character creation, you can go pretty much nuts with that. But a lot of the old school wrestlers are in this game, you know, right off the bat, and you know, the theme music and everything, so you don't have to rely on just downloading characters made by other people or creating your own. It seems like they have a pretty solid roster in this title. But back to talking about the PC port, you know, the performance is what it is. It's locked to 60, but at the end of the day, if you're a wrestling fan now or was in years past and you like playing wrestling games, this is pretty much the only show in town. And it's the best one that, you know, current one that you can play anyway. The last one was 2K20 and complete disaster. So this is a step very much in the right direction, but it's far from perfect, as I said, with the PC port quality and the performance. Controls, pretty solid. I definitely recommend using a controller, though. It does support keyboard and mouse. Also has ultra-wide support, which I did forget to mention earlier. I would have liked to have mentioned that earlier on when I was going over the graphics options. It does support ultra-wide. Even the like ultra-wide, like 32:9. So even if you're using something like that, it is supported, seems to be very well in this game, actually. I was looking it up on Reddit, and seems to be supported quite well in the game. So you should be happy with that as well. It's really just that the whole frame rate lock thing, which is kind of an issue, and you should expect to play this game with a controller, so I'm not going to give him any shit for not having good keyboard and mouse controls. This is not the kind of game you want to play on a keyboard and mouse. I plugged the controller in right away. I wouldn't even think about playing with a keyboard and mouse, honestly. So at the end of the day, I would, even with these issues, if, your only option is to play this game on PC, I would say, if you want to play a wrestling game, this is the one to kind of get right now. It's got a solid, like I said, solid lineup of wrestlers, good selection of arenas, and stuff along those lines. I haven't gotten too much into the career mode yet, the My Rise. I started off with the showcase mode, which in this game focuses on Rey Mysterio Jr. I would like to see other ones of those added. Like maybe they could add in other showcases, with different superstars. I think would be kind of cool if they could work those into the game, especially with the, as I mentioned at the start, the recent passing of Scott Hall. I would love to see one for him. Starting out with him and his, they could throw in the ladder match with HBK at WrestleMania 10, and his Intercontinental Championship reign, and then maybe jump in, since they have WCW stuff in this game and NWO, which they focus on a lot. They could throw that in, and the crossover with him and Kevin Nash going over to WCW, and then the whole thing with Hulk Hogan joining NWO and becoming a bad guy back then. There's a lot there that they could explore with Scott Hall. Maybe they'll do him in next year's game because of the recent passing. But I feel like the showcase mode, it's cool. It's fun, and the way that they integrate the live action cutscenes, sort of like mid match. Like if you complete like these little objectives and stuff and do things that happen in the real match, like it will go seamlessly from in game to like actual video footage of the match. And that part of it's pretty cool. It really just doesn't get old, honestly. And I really enjoyed that. So that kind of stuff is really cool, and I would love to see them expand that and do more wrestlers, because, I mean, the footage is there. It's just a matter of really, slapping it sort of together with the game and all that. And they also do cut in, like, interviews that they've done recently with Rey Mysterio Jr. For this game, as he's the cover star for the game. So overall, though, I am enjoying the game. I'm going to continue to play it. I might even grab it on PS5 because the performance, from what I understand, is identical to the PC. It runs at 60 FPS. I think it might be 4K native on PS5. And all of the pitfalls of cutting to 30 FPS for the cinematics, the intros, and all of that are still the same on there. So I'm really just gaining being able to play it on my couch on a big 75-inch TV, rather than sitting in my office playing it on a 27-inch 4K 120 hertz monitor, which is honestly going to waste on this game quite a bit. So still a good game, though. If you're a wrestling fan, I do recommend still picking it up if you're okay with putting up with some of the 30 FPS stuff in the game and all that, and the 60 FPS cap. Still a very solid game. And once again, before I get out of here, RIP to Scott Hall. Absolute legend of a man. Sad to see him die so young. It's early, I think he was 63. Pretty young, honestly. Sad to see him go. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and I will catch you next time for another video. This has been the Port Report with Joker Productions. Sarah.